Moving on to the next item on special orders, Senate File 723, Senator Ingebretson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope this works here. If anybody comes down the aisle, please come cautiously. Mr. President, members, Senate File 723 is before you is the Environmental Natural Resource Finance and Policy Bill. First of all, I got to say a couple thank yous. I know it's late, but I'm going to say thank you to Senator Rood and her committee for the work that she's put into this, as well as, of course, the nonpartisan staff, Greg Knopf, Dan Mueller, Ben Stanley, and numerous pages that worked, and of course my staff, Sean Murphy, David Fraser, Dallas Fisher, and also the members of the committee, Rood, Eichhorn, Senator Johnson, Lang, Matthews, and Weber. And with DFL, Senator Thomasoni as the lead, and Senator Dietzick, Herr, Simonson, and Bach. Mr. President, members, the Omnibus Environmental Natural Resource Appropriation and Policy Provisions included in this bill is the funding for the Pollution Control Agency, the Department of Natural Resources, the Metropolitan Council, Regional Parks, Minnesota Conservation Corps, Board of Water and Soil Resources. Also included in this bill is the Minnesota Zoo, the Science Museum, and the Minnesota Board of Tourism. Over 75% of the funding from this bill comes from sources other than the general fund. The committee general fund target for this bill reduction was $40 million for this coming biennium, $50 million in the tails minus. Members, I'm going to start right out with the bill. There's going to be other senators that are going to be talking on really significant parts, and Senator Rood, of course, will take Article 2, which is basically the policy. But Article 1 of the bill is on the budget. The Environmental Finance Committee was given a negative 40 and 50 in the tails, negative 50 in the tails. Overall, this budget for the next biennium will see a minus 0.114 reduction. Section 2 is the Pollution Control Agency, starting on page 2 through 13 of the bill. Money shifted mostly to the Environment Fund. Overall, the budget was impacted at a negative minus 0.2%. That means from the forecast, and the Pollution Control Agency will see a minimal reduction from the forecast. Mr. President and members, Section 3, Department of Natural Resources. That's from pages 13 to 26 of the bill. You'll see reduced in their general fund appropriation by 3.95%. However, we'll only see a minus 1.65 reduction from the forecast. Members, the governor's proposal did have hunting and fishing fees, as we all know. We've probably been talking about hunting and fishing and camping. There are no fee increases in this bill except for a snowmobile fee, which basically brings the snowmobile registration fee of Senator St. John's bill up to the same as the ATVs. Section 4, members, is the Board of Soil and Water Resources. From the previous biennium, they will receive a 0.79% increase. This is mostly for an increase in SCORE grants. A couple of years ago, Governor Dayton and the legislature slated $22 million to soil and water conservation for buffers to come from the Clean Water Fund. That was projected to go into this budget for the biennium, but we have once again chosen this money to come from the Clean Water Fund. Section 5, members, is the Met Council Regional Parks and Trails portion. We will see a net result of no change, actually. We have reduced their general fund by appropriation by 11.5%, but have replaced the reduction from their own dedicated account, lottery in lieu of account. Members, Section 6 is the Conservation Corps. There was no change to the budget. Section 7, the Minnesota Zoo, seen no change to the budget. Section 8, the Science Museum, no change. And Section 9, Minnesota Tourism, you will see no change in their budget from the forecast. We did reduce their operating budget to continuous local special events, which was the Governor Dayton's change item. Overall budget highlights, increase in SCORE funding. Senator Rude bill also funded local parks and trail connection grants at $500,000 per year. An increase in funding of the parks account by $1 million a year without a fee increase. And Mr. President and members, I will turn the presentation over to Senator Rude for her to give us Article 2 of the bill.
Senator Rude.
Mr. President and members, I also add my thank yous to the great staff that we had, and also to my committee administrator, Matt Alfretz, and my CLA, Jonathan Cotter. Great additions to our staff this year, and I couldn't have done it without them. So a big thank you to them. Some of the highlights of the policy provisions of this bill. We had the DNR Omnibus Timber and Outdoor Recreation Rules Bill. That's a technical bill. We also had the DNR Omnibus Technical Policy Bill. Many provisions in there. We have allowing blaze pink for hunting, along with the blaze orange. We helped the resorters this year with the minnows license modifications. We extended the open-air swine basin ban for 5 years. We did a silica sand project rulemaking requirement amendment, stormwater reuse, minnow importation, scopes on muzzle loaders, heating oil spills cleanup act, and of course one of the provisions that I'm really proud of is that's the governor's water quality improvement goals. 25 by 25 was included in this bill. So a lot of good policy provisions in this bill. And so we hope that with all the hard work we put in this, that you will support this bill this evening. Thank you.
Discussion to the bill. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I still have one article left in the bill to talk about here real quickly. Section 1, the DNR section, and Section 10 and 11 of the PCA, pages 102 and 111 and 113 for your reference. That talks about permitting. Only upon the request of the permit applicant do you have to provide a schedule, and only for Tier 2 permits. It talks further about other permit application deemed complete. The agency has up to 5 months, or I believe the bill says 150 days, to issue a draft permit. It talks about if the accuracy is not accurate, the person, the business doing has to republish or risk litigation. Section 2 of the DNR and Section 12 pertains to other language already existing, not new language. None of this happens without a written agreement or with the Commissioner's permission. Section 3 DNR and Section 13 PCA government shutdown language. Members, it takes a long time to shut down a manufacturing plant and an agricultural processing plant, a taconite plant, or a paper mill. You just can't flip the switch. There's language in here that if there's permits in progress, the state of Minnesota still have to honor those permits during a shutdown. Permits and environmental review are not general fund dollars. They are paid for by permit fees, and members, you should know that, and therefore they should continue to be processed during that shutdown. Section 4 DNR and Section 14 PCA unadopted rules, page 4 and page 117. Guidance and manuals are good. They help with clarity. Problem is when they show up in permits and enforcement actions, If you're going to treat them like rules, they should be taken through the rule process. Section 5 pertains to, extends non-FIRS leases from 21 to 36 years. It's the Senator Tomassoni provision. Section 6 clarifies for permit to mine permits how to appeal process, how the appeal process works. Right now, it's somewhat confusing if the appeal goes to contested case or judicial review. Clarifies final decision to go to judicial review, all others to contested case. In 93.4 and the rules 6130.4008 and 6132.4000. Section 16 pertains to we had some discussion with regards to adding 45 days to an appeal. That was a Senator Latz amendment in judiciary from 30 to 45 days. Section 7, wetland replacement sites must follow procedures identified in law in the same watershed in the same county in another wet bank service area. Once that is accomplished, the plan may be approved for permit to mine permits, a wetland value replacement plan, and a local comprehensive wetland protection and management plan. Section 8 is a Senator Bach initiative, page 107, puts into law the Department of Natural Resources guidance document regarding rare and natural communities. Section 15, as Senator Weber talks about going from 1,000 to 2,000 animal units for the environmental assessment worksheet. And members, Senator Weber has certainly agreed to talk about that if you have any questions. On Section 15, all agencies identified in a draft EIS can begin to accept and review but not approve or finalize. Section 17, page 122, already allowed in law. This is just an option for a reasonable governmental unit, city, county, or state agency. They may not have the expertise. Companies can do it faster. No reason to do it wrong. All information submitted, public data. The agency still has to actually get it past the commissioner for approval. So members, with that, I know there are some if there's some other questions with regards to major parts of the bill, we'll stand for those questions at this time.
Any discussion to Senate File 723? Senator Marty.
Mr. President, I have an amendment at the desk, the A33 amendment.
Senator Marty moves the A33 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Marty moves to amend Senate File 723 as follows. Page 33, delete. This is the A33 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I won't speak on this long. It would save a lot of debate time if we took out the policy of this bill. There's plenty of environmental budget issues we have to address, and they're going to be difficult to do. It does not help to have unrelated policy or even related policy in the bill. I urge you to remove it. It will make our budget process much better and make government more accountable. Again, there's some provisions in the bill I think all of us would like. I think there's some that many of us would dislike, but that's something that should be dealt with in separate bills other than the budget. So I urge you to support the A33 amendment and ask for roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Roll call granted. Further discussion. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Mr. President, members, I would ask you not to support the amendment. This is not unusual coming forward with the Environment Natural Resource Bill. At least in my memory, I know there was always been policy involved or included in the bill, and I know Senator Marty does have a hard time with that. But members, I would again ask you to oppose the amendment.
Further discussion to the amendment. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would encourage that you vote for the Marty amendment. Members, the governor has communicated to us very clearly in a letter that he distributed a week or so ago, indicating that he was not going to be supporting these finance bills that have controversial and extreme policy language connected to them, that he simply will not be leveraged. And members, it's important that we get the finance work of our state accomplished and not try to ride some of these controversial measures on and try to leverage that through the finance bills. And we've tried to hew to that in the past, successfully sometimes, oftentimes not successfully. I know that when I was the transportation chair, I was adamant about running a finance bill separate from my policy bill. And that was for a really good reason. We have separate policy deadlines. We have separate finance deadlines for a reason. Members, just to let you know, there's a virtual, almost entire rollback of a signature priority of the governor's on the buffer initiative of his. That's certainly not going to gather his support for the larger bill. There's an effort to suspend water quality standards. There's an effort to favor corporate permits and limiting citizen voices in the permitting process. We had a lengthy midnight discussion about that, and Senator Ingebrigtsen presenting that bill with Tony Quillis sitting by his side, representing the chamber on that. Extreme exemptions for agriculture and environmental review. Lead ammunition, we know, very toxic to our wildlife. A preemption of local units of government, their ability to determine for themselves environmental practices around plastic bag regulations. An effort to roll back local units and local residents' ability to protect themselves from silica sand mining is in this bill. Those and a number of other very controversial measures, Mr. President, and members, are attached to the financing in this bill, and they should be separated, so I encourage a green vote for the Marty amendment.
Further discussion to the A33 amendment. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll on the amendment. All senators voting that desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 27 ayes and 37 nays, the amendment is not adopted. Further discussion to the bill, Senator Bach.
Mr. President, I have the A27 amendment.
Senator Bach offers the A27 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Bach moves to amend Senate File number 723 as follows, page 98 after line 5, insert. This is the A27 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Bach.
Mr. President, members, last session, Senator Franzen carried a bill that we passed into law that required boats that are operated on the waters of the state to be equipped with a functioning marine carbon monoxide detector if they have sleeping accommodations on their boat. The challenge that's come up, members, and the provision is the effective date is May 1st of this year. The problem that's come up is with the large houseboat operators of the state. There are 6 of those types of businesses in my district. Many of you have probably been there to one of the 4 operators in Voyageurs National Park or on Lake Vermilion or on Birch Lake. Probably have 150 or more houseboats in my district that are for rent. And the challenge with the requirement is they have to be marine-grade carbon monoxide detectors. And most of the boats are older boats. They're not wired for hardwire electric carbon monoxide detectors, which are available as marine grade. But there is no available marine grade battery operated carbon monoxide detectors produced today. Prototypes have been made. They're going through the appropriate testing that's required to get approved. We expect them to be in production sometime this spring or summer, but the houseboat operators are very, very concerned about on May 1st, they're going to be breaking the law if they don't have them in. So what the amendment does, and I want to thank Senator Franzen for her willingness to support this, is for this class of boat, the boats that are specifically required to be inspected by a county sheriff under law as boats for hire, it allows them to use a carbon monoxide detector that is not marine rated until September 30th. But after September 30th, they'll have to be equipped with the marine-rated carbon monoxide detectors. So they will have carbon monoxide detectors in them as required under the law. They just will not be marine-rated until October 1st. So, members, all it really does is move an effective date from May 1st to October 1st, and I'd appreciate your support. And Senator Ingebrigtsen, I've talked with him, and I appreciate his consideration of this also.
To the amendment, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Bach, thank you for the amendment. You and I did talk about this, and I certainly will consider this a friendly amendment, and I too also want to thank Senator Franzen for allowing this to go forward here. Those of you that were here last year remember the terrible tragedy that happened in her district, and actually I did talk with Senator Bach about this during my conversation. I did tell him that I was actually contacted by his houseboat folks up north, and they said they just simply couldn't do it, and so this does make good sense, and so I would support the amendment, and thank you, Senator Bach.
Senator Senjum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would Senator Bach yield?
Senator Bach will yield. Senator Senjum.
Senator Bach, would you like a sprinkler exemption on this bill? On this amendment, we could probably try that too.
Senator Bach.
Senator Senjum, I'd consider that a friendly amendment to my amendment. But it's just too bad you haven't had it prepared. I should have let you know this was coming. It's probably more than we can do orally.
Further discussion to the amendment. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the 827 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The amendment is adopted. Further discussion to the bill. Senator Eakin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I have the A32 amendment.
Senator Eakin moves the A32 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Eakin moves to amend Senate File 723 as follows, page 101 after line 22, insert. This is the A32 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Eakin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, what this amendment does is to lift the limitation on the grants available from the point source implementation grants for phosphorus reduction at the Detroit Lakes wastewater treatment upgrade. The wastewater treatment upgrade is estimated to cost $36 million for the upgrade, which really is unbearable for the community of Detroit Lakes. And what this amendment does is it only addresses the phosphorus portion, and that's the portion which is really driving the costs here. Detroit Lakes has the lowest, most stringent phosphorus limit in the state, in fact, in the upper Midwest, with a discharge limit of 0.066 milligrams per liter. That's 94% more stringent than other communities in the state. This is the main reason that we're asking for a lift to the cap, because the project costs to meet this limit are exceedingly expensive. And one of the reasons that it is so much more stringent is because the only place to discharge into is an impaired body of water, and it's a lake that it's discharging into. And again, so it only applies to the phosphorus portion, which is about $15.2 million of the $36 million is the phosphorus portion of that. And this lifts the cap so that the grant could cover up to 80% of the cost of that phosphorus reduction. So what that would do is it would allow Detroit Lakes to receive up to $12 million instead of the program cap, which is $7 million. And I think it's important to note that even with that cap, even with the increase up to the $12 million, the cost for the residents in Detroit Lakes will still exceed the PFA's affordability index. And the affordability index is, they pegged that at 1.4% of the median household income. And even then, it's still higher, even with the help. It's at $62 a month, which is $12 higher than what they call the affordability index. So, and I think it's important to note that it does have a regional impact. It protects downstream waters of Lake Sally, Lake Melissa, the Pelican River, the Otter Tail River, and the Red River. And also other cities have had similar provisions in the past. In 2008, Litchfield was awarded a $6 million grant, and Wilmer received a $7 million grant. There was also a cap that was lifted for another regional project, which was the Central Iron Range sanitary system. And I think it's also important to note that this is only permissive language. It just allows the PFA to award more money through this grant if they so choose. So with that, I would ask for your support. I have talked with Senator Ingebrigtsen, and I do appreciate his consideration of this amendment, and would thank you for your support.
To the amendment, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. President, boy, I'm having a tough time with that too. I did talk with Senator Eakin about this, and I do consider it a friendly amendment. I know it is going to be, it doesn't have anything to do with the target that we're talking about tonight. It does direct the money coming from the PFA, as we talked about earlier. And members, you should know that the part of this bill today is talking about this very issue, about what the standards are and what these smaller towns are having to come up with for the millions and millions of dollars, especially in rural Minnesota, that they're having to come up with to try and meet these standards. So it's certainly appropriate in the bill, and we talked about it, and Senator Newman has a portion of the bill in here that somewhat addresses this. So I again would support the amendment.
Further discussion to the A32 amendment. Senator Westrom.
Madam, sorry. Mr. President, I just would take this opportunity real briefly to talk about other communities. As Senator Eakin has eloquently talked about, there are many communities. I have one in my district, city of Morris. Breckenridge is another community facing the need to upgrade their water infrastructure, and so I think this is on the cusp of what is another important issue that needs to be dealt with, hopefully in the next 2 months in this body. And so Senator Eakin has got compelling case in his amendment. We've got others that we need to be talking about and moving forward with as soon as we can.
Further discussion, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to echo the thoughts. The city of Faribault back in 2008 experienced the same situation. We spent $25 million on phosphorus levels, or the whole plant upgrade, and I believe 13 of that was included in the phosphorus levels. It increased our sewer water rates in our city, which effectively put a hint or a stint on our businesses and our residences. So I think we definitely need to look at it. I've talked to Senator Eakin about it as well, and my concerns with the MPCA and some of those over-regulating rules. So I would support the amendment. I think it's a great idea, and I think we definitely need to look at it long term. So thank you.
Any further discussion to the 832 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The amendment is adopted. Further discussion to the bill, Senator Frentz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to offer the A37 amendment.
Senator Frentz offers the A37 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Frentz moves to amend Senate File Number 723 as follows, page 68, line 8. This is the A37 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Frentz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for your patience tonight. I bring forth this amendment hoping that it will be received by Senator Ingebrigtsen as a friendly amendment. One of the positives we don't talk about as much as we should in this chamber is that Minnesota is home to some of the finest farmland in the nation and also some of the finest farmers. One of our greatest challenges is the buffer strip rules. This amendment seeks to make it easier to find farmers ways to comply and still pursue our goals of clean water. As you review the amendment, what you'll see is that it would amend our buffer strip laws to allow a farmer to request a determination of alternative practices, which is one of our most innovative ways to allow farmers to meet the requirements without taking as much land out of production ineffectively. If a farmer requests a determination from the Soil and Water Conservation District, and if they do that within 90 days of the effective date, they will be immune from prosecution or being found out of compliance until they receive the determination from the Soil and Water Conservation District. This will allow not only farmers to pursue alternative practices to a greater extent, but with some flexibility to know that once they've made the request of that district, they cannot be found out of compliance. And for that reason, I've asked stakeholders in our district, they're very much in favor. Mr. President, I do have a fiscal note showing a zero cost. I did also have the pages distribute a letter from Minnesota Farm Bureau indicating that they would support this, and hopefully the pages have distributed that. Also, Minnesota Farmers Union and Bowser are supportive, and for that reason, I would ask members to consider voting yes on this amendment for the good of not only our farmers, but our interest in clean water across the state. Thank you very much.
Discussion to the A37 amendment, Senator Westrom.
Mr. Speaker, if Senator Frentz would yield to a question.
Senator Frentz will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Frentz, just to clarify, if I'm understanding your amendment and the way you described it, essentially you're trying to make it easier or at least a clearer path for alternative practices to help achieve the goal of the buffer strips. Is that kind of a correct interpretation?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Westrom. That is exactly what we're looking for here. By providing another reason to allow farmers to pursue alternative practices and granting this protection, if you will, from buffer strip enforcement, they'll receive time until such moment as the determination is made. If it's determined to be an acceptable alternative practice, they're good to go. If it's not determined to be an acceptable alternative practice, they remain available to take the buffer strip land. So that's the point of our amendment, Senator Westrom. Thank you, Mr. President.
And Mr. President and Senator Frentz, I would concur with your analysis, and Senator Weber and myself and others have some language in here also that have worked on to try to help advance the buffer concept, but also help with some making it more workable and a little more time on behalf of getting it implemented. And I think this would be good common sense. You're well familiar in the legal community. We'd call this good faith, and I think that's really what it would do, is give farmers an option of good faith, and if it's not eventually satisfied as an alternative practice, it's at least a good faith effort that they've been making the right steps, and the modifications would come after that, if I understand your amendment, Senator Friends. And so I would urge members to support this language as we try to improve the buffer language and make it workable for all the farmers in the different geographic areas in the counties we have in our state.
Further discussion, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I need to discuss it anymore. I think Senator Westrom covered it very well. I'd offer this as a friendly amendment. I do see also that the Minnesota Farm Bureau supports this as well. So offer this, members, I would support it.
Any further discussion to the A37 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Further discussion, Senator Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A50 amendment.
Senator Schoen offers the A50 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Schoen moves to amend Senate File Number 723 as follows. Page 122 after line 9. Insert. This is the A50 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this should be a simple amendment. It just points out that an environmental impact statement provided by a private entity that would be submitted for public review, that the preparation materials, etc., would be public data, just as if a government agency would do it. I hope this is a friendly amendment, just like the others, and if it is, I promise I won't say another word on this bill all night.
Discussion to the amendment. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's an offer I can hardly turn down without even looking at the amendment. So, Senator, if you would please describe it one more time to me here. I just received it here, and it talks about page 122 and with regards to related to action of public government data subject to disclosure. Could you explain that a little bit further for me here?
Senator Schoen.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, I'd be happy to. Mr. President, Senator Ingebrigtsen, this bill or this amendment just makes sure that the data classification around an environmental impact statement prepared by a private entity that's submitted to the government, that it would also be considered public data, including the preparation materials, etc. So if it was prepared for instance, if the MPCA prepared the environmental impact statement, or Ingebrigtsen's Acme Environmental Impact Statement Company prepared it, all of that would be considered public data, just like it would be in a government entity, since it would be related to the public. It's a good amendment, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'm being told that it's already in, so I would accept it as a friendly amendment.
Further discussion to the A50 amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Any further discussion to the bill? Senator Swedzinski.
I have the A31 amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Swedzinski moves the A31 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Swedzinski moves to amend Senate File 723 as follows. Page 122, delete Section 18. This is the A31 amendment.
Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. This bill deals with Section 18 of the bill, which says on July 1st, 2019, the water quality standards or other water quality rule changes adopted on or after July 2nd, 2014 that require a local unit of government to upgrade or update its wastewater treatment facility or to construct a new wastewater treatment facility are suspended. 62% of Minnesotans want tougher environmental standards. 20% think they're just right. 82% of Minnesotans care about clean water quality standards. Now's not the time to suspend things like attempts to, wow, am I tired? I'm sorry. Attempts to suspend the attempts we've made to, okay, I'm losing my train of thought. I apologize to the body. All of us from the 60s, from this room, remember what happened in our rivers and our lakes before the Clean Water Act was passed. All of us in this room can remember what happened in Flint, Michigan recently, and Martin City, Kentucky. I would ask all of you to support this amendment. And if I could paraphrase Barry Goldwater, he once said, and I'm paraphrasing, extremism in defense of clean water is no vice. And at this late time in the day, I stand for questions as long as they're yes or no answers.
To the amendment, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I'll try to be as clear and succinct as Senator Sosinski. I'm not doing too well. Members, I would stand in opposition to the proposed A31 amendment, and I'll do so for the following reasons. This Section 18 is effectively a moratorium on the implementation of the 2014 new phosphorus regulations. And let me just throw a couple of statistics out for you to try and give you some flavor of what Minnesota is facing under this new regulation. According to the testimony in committee, the Pollution Control Agency has indicated that the phosphorus reduction coming out of our wastewater treatment plants in the state of Minnesota ranges from between 4 and 10% of the total amount of phosphorus that is being discharged into our waters. The new 2014 regulation proposes to reduce that 4 to 10% of total phosphorus. So let me give you an idea. I've got 9 cities in my Senate district that are faced with the very same problem that Senator Eakin just got done describing for Detroit Lakes and Senator Westrom just got done describing for cities in his district. And I will tell you that I would guess, for every senator on the floor tonight that has rural cities in their district, they are all facing the same problem. In my district alone, City of Hutchinson has to try and comply with this new regulation, and the cost to the City of Hutchinson is about $3.5 million and will increase their annual cost by $100,000 to $250,000 a year. City of Glencoe, a town of about 7,000 to 8,000 people, is going to cost the City of Glencoe about $5 million to comply with this new regulation. City of Cokato, a real small town on the north end of my district, 3,000 people thereabouts. The price tag for complying with this regulation, about $9 million. City of Winstead, little town on the west side of my district that Senator Hoffman is very familiar with. They have just gone through an extensive amount of work on their wastewater treatment plant in order to comply, $7 million. In committee, City of Mankato, the city administrator came in and described what they are being faced with, and their estimate to comply between $10 and $30 million. City of Rochester, the best estimate that I've been given so far for Rochester to comply with this regulation, $96.5 million. When the Pollution Control Agency was in committee, they testified as to the number of cities in Minnesota that are going to have to comply with this regulation. 117 small cities in rural Minnesota are going to have to comply with this 2014 regulation. And I will tell you, my colleagues, there's simply no way that our rural cities can comply with this regulation in terms of cost. They will have to come to the state of Minnesota and get the money. And I have no idea how much money we are talking about, but it is going to be a lot of money, a significant amount of money that will range into the upper hundreds of millions of dollars by my best estimate. The genesis of this particular section started in 2015 when Senator Eakin brought forth a bill. And in his bill, he, number one, called for the moratorium that is the subject of this amendment. And number two, he was asking for a study to be conducted, a cost-benefit analysis study. That was passed in the 2015 special session. The cost-benefit analysis that Senator Eakin requested in his bill has now been completed. It landed on my desk on February 10th, 2017. It consists of about 400 pages of extremely technical information. I have tried to read it. I cannot read it. It will take some time for us to get help from the scientists who have completed that cost-benefit analysis. And the purpose of it is, and this cost-benefit analysis, by the way, cost us about $500,000. The purpose of it is to tell us whether or not it is worth all of that money that I have just described to you to reduce the amount of phosphorus that is being discharged out of our wastewater treatment plants. Or maybe we should be going after the other 95% or the 93% of the phosphorus that is being discharged into our water, rather than trying to implement this regulation on our wastewater treatment plants. That's really the idea. And until we take the time to understand what is in this cost-benefit analysis that we have just received and paid for, we will have wasted all of the effort that Senator Eakin had put into his bill, and all the money and all of the time to get this cost-benefit analysis. So the point of the moratorium is to just take a breath and stop, and let's see what it is going to cost us, and is it going to be worth it. I personally think that it is, you know, we would be absolutely remiss if we continued to spend the kind of money that is being proposed by the Pollution Control Agency that we spend without having any idea, and I mean any idea, as to whether or not it is going to be of any benefit to us. So I will conclude with this. I pulled one page out of this 400-page report that I was able to read. And what it says is the cost estimate for upgrades presented in this report represent a significant financial burden for the affected cities. Mr. President, I cannot urge my Senate colleagues strongly enough to pay attention to what I have just said as to the cost to our cities in rural Minnesota, and the cost with going forward without having any idea as to whether or not there's any benefit. I want to applaud Senator Eakin for coming forward with this bill in 2015. He was on the right track then, and we are now seeing the fulfillment of what he had tried to accomplish 2 years ago. Thank you, Mr. President.
Discussion to the amendments. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to request a roll call.
Roll call being requested, roll call granted. Further discussion, Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify a bit that it is, the PCA says that 7% of the costs of these clean water, these new water treatment plants, is attributable to the water quality. Most of it is because the infrastructure is aging. We haven't replaced any of it for the last 50 years. It's now wearing down, and that's where the cost is. The cost is not because of the requirement to remove phosphorus.
Further discussion, Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. We all empathize with small town America and the expenses that are going to be incurred with trying to stop the eutrophication of our lakes and rivers. And maybe that's a good place to take a look at where what we might be able to use some of the surplus that we have right now. We owe it to our children's children. One of the duties we have as a state legislature is to give our children a great education, and what we owe their children is clean water and clean air.
Further discussion to the amendment, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I too do not support this amendment. Members, I've been in the committee now, or in the Environment Committee for the 11 years, going on 11 years that I've been here, and we've had many discussions over the years about water quality in the state of Minnesota, and I don't think there's anybody that I've ever served with, and anybody in the body sitting here today, that wants our water quality to be depleted in any fashion whatsoever. In fact, I asked some very, I think, seasoned experts at different times, twice actually over the those last years, in testimony that how are the rivers and streams in the state of Minnesota doing now compared to when the good senator and I were growing up? And they said they're doing very well. Of course, we can always do better. But what does do better mean? What does do better cost? And I think that's what Senator Newman's talking about here. So again, members, this is going to affect small communities dearly, and we should applaud ourselves for the work that the legislators have done for the years before this. So, members, please don't vote no on this amendment.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members, I would encourage a green vote. I'm sure you're shocked for the Swedzinski amendments. Members, no one claims that dealing with the phosphorus that ends up in our waters through our city wastewater system takes care of the entire phosphorus problem that we have. But we have a tremendous phosphorus problem, and the eutrophication of our water is a very, very serious issue, causing the kinds of algae blooms and the like that have terrible effects on our surface waters. But it is responsible for some of it, and it needs to be dealt with, and the science is quite sound. Senator Eaton made the point earlier that we don't escape having to pay for replacing our wastewater infrastructure because it's aging, and it's aging all over the state. We saw the report that the governor developed just about a few months ago. Outside of just simply needing to update our technology and our treatment systems to deal with phosphorus, they just need to be replaced. And so it's not as if though we're going to avoid having to spend money. And so as long as we're replacing these aging infrastructure, we might as well also update them to deal with the phosphorus issues. But I'll point out a big reason for the phosphorus issues we have in our water is agricultural runoff. How do we solve that? Buffer strips. What are we doing in this bill? Pretty much blowing up the entire buffer initiative that the governor has. So it feels like in this bill we simply don't want to deal with the issues of pollution and runoff going into our water system. We just want to suspend the existing regulations and eliminate the initiatives that we do have, whether it's through municipal water systems and wastewater or through other sources as well. So I don't know, when the public is looking on and seeing this bill and wondering what the heck we're doing, we're moving backwards. We've got this tremendous legacy resources. Why did that legacy amendment pass by the largest margin of anything that's passed on a statewide basis? Because people care about water in Minnesota. And they're putting that investment in to take care of our water, and we're busy unwinding all of those investments by these initiatives in this bill.
Senator Rude.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would urge a red vote on this amendment. I think Senator Newman is on the right track. I think Senator Eakin did a really good job when he said, let's do this, when he said, let's look at this issue. Let's bring forward this study. Now we have the study and we've had no time to look at it. It's so comprehensive. We had it in our committee. We looked at it and there's no way that we can digest all of that information. On Monday night, the new Legislative Water Commission met, the new members met, and we had really good conversations about where we should go with this commission and what we should do. And we've decided, and through the help of our director, that maybe one of our goals should be to be the group that looks at this study. And we have offered to work with Senator Newman and look at this study and digest it and see where we're really going. And so I think that this bill gives us the time out to take a look and really look and see where we're going and what we should do here. And I think that Senator Eakin's study really deserves that time out to decide where we're going in the future and how we get there. And so I urge a red vote on this, and let's take a time to look at this study and really do a good job going forward.
Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would also urge a red vote. Yes, it is true that there are a number of systems across the state that, due to their age and condition, need to be replaced. But the phosphorus recommendations that Senator Newman was previously talked about have oftentimes been put in place on the heels of an already upgraded system. And so it isn't always the time it isn't always because that they're old and somewhat broken down. But we have many instances of not only the phosphorus situation, but many times when local communities have spent millions of dollars putting in a new system or upgrading their system, only to be hit within a relatively short period of time with millions of dollars of new requirements. And I think that is what has led to a lot of this problem as well. And let's not forget, we can talk about hundreds of millions just for phosphorus, but there are many other hundreds of millions of dollars out there concerning other issues as it relates to the wastewater treatment systems.
Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I just wanted to follow up on what Senator Rude had indicated. She did approach me with utilizing the Water Commission as a place to go with this report. And members, I just want to indicate to you that after the Easter break, I will be meeting with the director of the Legislative Water Commission to begin working on the interpretation. And I hope to report back to you next summer or at the beginning of session as to exactly what the recommendations are going to be. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion to the A31 amendment. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll on the amendment.
It won't turn off.
after hanging out with you all these years, you finally, you know, you think you vote with something good,
You're right.
All senators voting who desire to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 30 ayes and 35 nays, the amendment is not adopted.
Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move the A29 amendment.
Senator Eaton moves the A29 amendment. The secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Eaton moves to amend Senate File Number 723 as follows, page 62 after line 6, insert. This is the A29 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam President. I would also like a roll call, please.
Roll call requested, roll call granted to the amendment.
This amendment would eliminate one form of trapping that uses cheap wire nooses to take animals called snares. Snares are put out by the hundreds and year-round. They are difficult to see and kill and maim many animals that are not targeted, including dogs, pheasants, wolves, moose, and songbirds. Snares often catch body parts and cause dismemberment, disbowelment, disabilities, and of course death. 20 states have outlawed the use of snares to trap animals. To be clear, this proposal would not eliminate recreational trapping, just the most cruel, unselective, and unnecessary type of trap. I would point out that the language of the amendment allows for an exception for use of snares in authorized predator control programs, including the DNR, to make sure we aren't interfering with our wildlife authorities. This issue sounds familiar. That's because earlier this month, 2 men were charged with illegally using over 600 snares in northern Minnesota. Charges included illegally trapping 17 fox, 2 fisher, 5 snowshoe hares, a wolf, and a deer. After executing a warrant, authorities discovered even more illegally taken wildlife. The amendment won't end all illegal trapping, but the cheap, lightweight snare is what made a crime of this scale possible, ultimately resulting in authorities seizing 638 illegal snares. They're the cheapest, cruelest method of trapping. They are totally unselective, and there is abundant documentation of both non-targeted wild and domestic animals, including dogs, getting caught in these wire nooses. It's time Minnesota joins the growing number of states that have banned this practice of killing wild animals. I ask for your support.
Further discussion on the A29? Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President and Senator Eaton. I'm not sure this was actually in bill form this year. I don't know. I know there's been some discussion about trapping over the years, and it becomes a real close to your heart type issue when you have people come in and testify. I don't know if it's been heard this year or not. It wasn't heard in my committee. But members, trapping has been around since the beginning of time, and the taking of fur-bearing animals has been legal for many, many years, and so very simply, I guess, without getting into too much discussion, I would not support this amendment.
Further discussion on the A29? Seeing none, the secretary will take the roll on the A29 amendment.
That's one of many ways. It's usually hidden in grass.
All those senators voting who desire to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 28 ayes and 37 nays, the amendment is not adopted. Further discussion on Senate File 723, Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. I would offer the A24.
Senator Simonson has offered the A24 amendment. The secretary will read the amendment.
Senator Simonson moves to amend Senate File number 723 as follows. Page 95, delete Section 105. This is the A24 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. And I would also request a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. Roll call granted to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, Section 105 is the Consumer Choice Act that deals with merchant bags. And I don't want to get into a long debate about really much of anything at this point, but certainly not about plastic bags. But what I do want to talk about is preemption of local units of government. And this is, I think, the most frustrating piece about this. To me, quite frankly, I've had the lobbyists come in and tell me why I should support the Consumer Choice Act, and I'm not suggesting that the points that they're making are necessarily poor points. My whole purpose for bringing forward this amendment is that I think that we need to be supportive of our local units of government and not necessarily strip away their abilities to make decisions on behalf of their own respective communities. I don't think that we as a state legislature would appreciate it very much if the federal government was in the business of banning states from taking actions on things that they perhaps didn't like. And you have to wonder where this stops. I mean, here we have in front of us essentially a prohibition on any political subdivision opposing any ban, fee, or tax upon paper, plastic, or reusable bags. But where does it stop? I mean, this really is the result, and I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's at least one community that has taken a step in this direction and other communities that are considering it. But where does it stop? Do we come back in a year from now or 2 years from now and the city of, XYZ, pick your favorite city, has passed an ordinance that we don't like? So we put it into law prohibiting cities from not only taking future action on that particular issue, but reversing the action that they took. And I want you to consider the reality that the public, your constituents, have more direct contact with their local city councils, with their county commissioners, with their school boards, with their whatever their local unit or government has to be, than they do at the state legislature. And I have seen these discussions take place in my city, not necessarily on this particular issue, but other issues that are perhaps controversial or issues that the community is passionate about. And I don't know that there's any better place for the public to come forward and air their concerns. And when you think about, the primary argument is that, the city-by-city bag ban is going to be problematic for merchants. And I'm not going to debate that. But I have to tell you that if that's the case, I don't think there's a better platform for merchants, local merchants, to come forward than to a city council and make that point. I do not think that the Minnesota State Legislature should be in the business of preempting local units of government from making decisions. I think we should be supportive of that, and that's why I bring forward this amendment. I would ask for your support.
Further discussion to the A24 amendment. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President. And members, I do not support this amendment, and these are the reasons why. By doing this, we're not supporting our retailers, and I know the senator didn't want to talk about his local grocery stores or local convenience stores that we all go to and we all shop at, and in fact, where we put our paper in these things, we're right next to us here, we have plastic bags. And I want to point that out because 90% of these bags that are being dispensed at Lund's Byerly's over here in St. Paul that I stop at, the good senator from St. Paul told me to stop there for groceries so I didn't have to go down Robert Street down to Senator Metzen's area to grocery shop when I only had this thing within a couple of blocks. And they dispense there, and it's certainly a clean and sanitary way of dispensing your groceries. And And we actually had people that talked to me about this that actually do the bagging. And they said, boy, they've got some terrible, terrible stories of unsanitary bags that are brought in and brought back in that are, but you know, that's kind of a personal issue. I know that, but nevertheless, it's still, it happens. And the people that bag we've heard from those folks. But the retailers are doing a good job of recycling. We all know, I go to these bigger Cub Foods and other stores throughout the state, and we see this. And we see the recycling bins there, and that creates, well, you know, it's certainly not a good way to create work, but nevertheless, recycling does create work and jobs in local communities as well. And by not doing this taxation, of course, you're going to, you know, if you're going to punish a retailer for actually having plastic bags by way of taxing them, guess who's going to pay for that? We're all going to pay for that. We all know that. It's going to be a consumer thing. So, members, sometimes the state of Minnesota does have to get involved, it seems to me, in setting some regulations, and this is one of them that I think is important. Unless we're going to do a statewide ban, I think it'd be really inconsistent for retailers throughout the state of Minnesota to have this hodgepodge thing. So, members, I would not support this amendment.
Further discussion on the A24. Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or excuse me, Madam President. It is late. And thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. I completely understand the points that you're making, and I don't necessarily disagree with many of them. My entire point to bringing this amendment forward is to say local units of government are best positioned to make these sorts of decisions. I can't imagine that any one of you would argue that if your city council took up this issue, that there wouldn't be a large amount of public debate, a large amount of public exposure. And that's what my concern is. If we pass this into law and the governor signs it, we are prohibiting, you know, over 850 cities across the state of Minnesota from even discussing it. Who are we to say what's best for the city of Thief River Falls or the city of Two Harbors or Red Wing or Wilmer or, you know, pick your favorite city? I don't think that we should be in this business of telling people, local elected officials, what they can and what they can't do all the time. This is where I get frustrated. And I think many of you come from positions that you've held previously, whether it be school board or city council or county commissioner, and you should understand that. I think it's the last thing that you would want to do or that you would want to see in those positions is the state of Minnesota saying, you know what, we didn't like the decision that you made, we didn't like the process that you used, we didn't like the fact that you took community testimony. We don't like any of that. In fact, we're going to ban it and we're going to reverse the action that you took. So that's why I bring this forward, and I would once again encourage a green vote.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I completely agree with Senator Simonson and the reasons that he's brought his amendment forward. I will argue for 1 second about plastic bags. Cities, including mine, have decided to move away from plastic bags for some good reasons. We also know that sometimes good ideas start at the local level and they percolate up, and they do as communities opt for various policy changes. Cumulatively, they come together, and eventually state level and maybe even national level policy gets moved because ideas originate in certain places through the democratic process. Plastic bags are made from polyethylene, and they've been shown to have some real harmful health effects both on humans and on wildlife. There's a 2016 study that predicted that the world's oceans could contain more tons of plastic packaging waste than fish by the year 2050. 12 million barrels of non-renewable oil are needed to make $100 billion plastic bags. We know that these little bits of plastic can get through our water treatment plants. Little bits of plastic as well can get from the water treatment plants into the waterways, and they look a lot like food to fish, and fish eat them and has a very negative effect on the ecosystem. It's a suspected human carcinogen. We know that even though they're recyclable, they don't get recycled. And we know that these disposable bags do work, especially when accompanied by a fee for if folks opted for the temporary plastic bags. So there are really good reasons, and there was a really good policy study, really good research, really good analysis, and a democratic process that has occurred at the local level. It can inform our policy making. I heard rationale earlier. Let's not do this because somehow or another it's harmful to a profitable industry. Well, what about our human health? What about our environment? What about some of those more important, larger values than we have than to simply the public's interest and the public good rather than just simply the profit motive in one industry?
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly on this, the argument's been made that the best group that can make this decision is the local units of government, but I would argue there's a better group that can make these decisions. The individuals themselves and the individual businesses in each one of our towns. And the reason why I say that, Madam President, is because here's one specific reason why local units of government do not provide the best cover for this. Each one of us have cities where we have shoppers and customers that come in from outside the city. And so they'd have no recourse direct with that specific city council. It would be those that are impacted. There are people from my district that shop in the metro. There are people from your districts that will shop in my areas, possibly going out to the lake or somewhere. There's a lot of cross application with this, and it should be up to the individual and it should be up to the business that should determine what is the best practice for them. And I've had businesses and grocery stores in my district that have strongly urged me to make sure that this legislation is enacted because they are already a heavily regulated industry as it is in a lot of different ways. They're running on very thin profit margins, and extra things like this that for one reason or another get put on from a city council or a local ordinance will only cut into that even deeper. And if it's a good idea to be doing this, I believe that the market and that our awareness of it will get to that point. There's already a number of things we could go over of things we have changed in our culture, things that we have done differently to make improvements in our society, all without government mandates on it. And so if plastic bags are that dangerous, even with all the increased recycling focus that we've had, I think that we will catch up to that and we will incorporate that, but we're not in a position to do that right now for our stores and for the individuals with our choice. So I would ask additionally for a no vote to this amendment.
Senator Friends.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you, members. Just briefly, I rise in support of the amendment and Senator Simon's basic logic. I'm 53 years old and still cannot decide whether I want paper or plastic at the grocery store. But I know this. I trust the city councils. I trust the mayors like the gentleman sitting next to me. I trust the county commissioners to make those decisions. And I would just ask this body at 2:30 in the morning on our first late night together, are we for or are we against local control? And I would ask members to consider that as they vote on this amendment. And I'd ask for a yes vote. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President, and I really appreciate the discussion going on here. The city of Dallas in California, I knew there was a town that I could refer to, and the folks in Dallas, California, rejected because they got so much pressure from the folks, so much pressure from their consumers, that they actually repealed it on a 10-4 vote. They said, enough of that, enough of this, we want our plastic bags back. And you know, folks, I haven't had a whole lot of people call me and say, you know, we really need to get rid of these plastic bags. I just don't have that happen. I certainly have some environmental groups that call now that see it on the forefront, but We're talking about consumers here too, not just cities. We're talking about state consumers. And it didn't work out so well for that one city in California. So I don't think we should want to put our cities in that kind of a position.
Secretary will take the roll on the 824 amendment.
Excuse me. Okay. Can I do that?
All those senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 30 ayes and 34 nays, the amendment is not adopted. Senator Isaacson?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to offer the A28 amendment.
Senator Isaacson has offered the A28 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Isaacson moves to amend Senate File Number 723 as follows. Page 59 after line 32, insert. This is the A28 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Isaacson.
Thank you. I think we've had a decent discussion tonight about traps and snares, and I'm not necessarily concerned about regulating at this moment the traps and snares other than on private land. And I was kind of surprised when I heard that a person who is engaged in trapping can place traps on private land without permission. And I just find that a little hard to believe. If I own land out in the greater Minnesota area that I was walking along with my pet or my dog, and someone had put a trap there that got and hurt my animal, I would be quite upset. And I really, that's who I'm writing this for, is I've been a dog person all of my life, and I know that dogs are a part of the family, and I think that I'm not even sure if I had land I'd say no as long as you told me where the traps were, right? But the idea is it's my land. It's my private land, and unless I give you permission, I don't want you leaving things that are destructive on my land without me knowing. And I can't imagine that we allow that. I'm not saying it's an anti-trapping amendment as much as it is a pro-dog amendment, I guess, and I hope that you'll accept it. I was really surprised to see that it was legal to go on someone's property and leave something like a trap lying around. And I hope that this isn't seen as too much of an aggressive amendment, but love to have your support. Thank you.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam President and members. I rise in support of this amendment that is in front of us. And it reminds me of a dear friend of mine who I grew up with. We played, it's not too loud, is it? Is it really?
Senator Hoffman, it really is.
Wow, I'm sorry. So I played in a band in the 80s, and there's a picture of our band, Madam President. And this guitar player, who was internationally known at the time, and he ended up now raising dogs, and he has a world-class champion dog. And I was going to get to the point of why it's loud, because I'm used to speaking in microphones. And so these dogs that he raises he spends thousands and thousands of dollars on, and they do these competitions within the fields. And he's also an upland bird hunter as well, and there are over 150,000 upland bird hunters in Minnesota. And there's a time where these guys are saying we're not going to have our dogs out in certain times during the year. And I'll take that back, Madam President, to the story of this wonderful guitar player who happens to raise these dogs. And they have private land, and it's in north central Minnesota. And they actually have to walk that private land because they were finding actual traps on the private land that was theirs, and it didn't come with permission. And so before the dogs that are cost thousands of dollars, and before they'll go out and do their runs within their own private land, they actually have to go and walk their land to get rid of the traps that some people have put in there. And so this just simply, and thank you, Senator Isaacson, for bringing this bill forward and this amendment forward, because this just gets that one more assurance that it's going to actually get some safety in here for those dogs that people spend thousands and thousands of hours and times and money on. So thank you.
Senator Housley.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Isaacson, for bringing this amendment to the floor. By adopting this language, it's just common sense that you cannot put traps onto private property. If we pass this amendment, we will join 22 other states that support private property rights. Currently, Minnesota allows trappers to set traps on private property without the landowner's permission, unless it's adequately posted that trespassing is not allowed. So not everybody is going to post a do not trespass sign on their thousands of acres. So I too, members, would support Senator Isaacson's amendment, and please vote yes.
Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam President. I too support this. I passed this in committee last year, but it didn't make it, that bill didn't make it through. But I live in a suburb by the Mississippi River in a rather, mature trees, a nice neighborhood. And my cat got out, and in my backyard, it got caught in a claw trap. And the vet said we'd probably have to remove the shoulder and the whole leg and all that because of the damage. But he did survive. We decided to see if he'd heal. But I went and I talked to law enforcement and my neighbor, and I came to find out that he was perfectly in his rights to put that trap on my land, in my backyard, where my grandson could have stepped on it. It was because he didn't like the raccoons that were coming through the path between our yards and were messing up his deck. So that is the reason why I've always been opposed to this. I mean, if he'd have asked and told me it was there, we could have done something about it maybe, but I just think it's ridiculous that this is a public safety issue. And I'll tell you, if it had been my grandson instead of that cat, never mind.
Senator Herr.
Madam President, I rise to support this amendment as well, and I want to say that snare and trap is not just harmful to pets or animals, but it's also harmful to humans as well, especially for those young novice outdoorsmen and young hunters who our state are trying to recruit and retain and make sure that they don't have mishap incident when they started their early years and explore the wilderness and continue to be a dedicated hunters as they grow old. And again, I rise to support this amendment.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President, and I will accept this as a friendly amendment, members.
All in favor of the A28 amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Further discussion on Senate File 723. Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the A17 amendment.
Senator Eaton offers the A17 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Eaton moves to amend.
If I thought you were going to take it, I wouldn't have made such a big deal about it, so thank you.
You were kind of loud. Keeping everybody awake. That's good. Let's see what. Let's see
Senator Eaton, they are going to be engrossing the amendment properly. If you would please withdraw the A17, then we can move on to another quickly while you wait.
Thank you, Madam President. I withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. Senator Simonson, I saw jump up.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move the A25 amendment.
Senator Simonson offers the A25 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Simonson moves to amend Senate File number 723 as follows. Page 89, delete section 101. This is the A25 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. And Senator Ingebrigtsen, just so you know, this amendment is going to be about the EQB, and I'm going to ask you to yield here in a minute. But essentially what the amendment does is it strips out the changes to the membership of the Environmental Quality Board. And I first want to say, this bill is different than it was when it left committee, and I want to say I appreciate your efforts to make the changes and put the funding back in the bill for the Environmental Quality Board. And the change that I'm proposing here is essentially just to go back to current law in terms of the makeup of the board. Although I'm intrigued by what you have here for proposed membership of the board. But my question for you, Senator Ingebrigtsen, if you will yield.
Senator Ingebrigtsen will yield. Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Ingebrigtsen, could you just tell me where this language came from in terms of the proposed makeup of the board, in terms of what it's going to look like? I could be wrong, but I just don't remember hearing this bill in committee. But if it was heard in committee, then I would apologize. But could you just tell me where the language came from?
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam President and Senator, there was a lot of discussion, as you know, about the EQB board, and obviously it was getting a lot of resistance from quite a few members, not only in the DFL, but also on our side of the aisle. And so with consideration and looking at actually what it was going to cost to ban the EQB board, along with the EQB members of the state of Minnesota, it was very costly. I mean, it was going to cost, I think, a net of 9 more people for the PCA and the DNR. So through conversations with my counterparts in the House, this is the language that we came up with. And I'll tell you why I think a distribution of members, the way it reads in the bill, I happened to have visited today with a rural member of the EQB board. She stopped by my office. Julie McCabe is her name. She's a member on there. She'd been on there for quite some time. Actually, she was appointed under the Pawlenty administration and now under the Dayton administration. She is the only rural member on that board. That's why you see this language here, and I think it makes sense. So I would offer to I'm certainly going to oppose your amendment, and I think it's a better way. And we've had lots of discussions in our committee, and I'm sure in Senator Rood's committee as well, about citizens committees and how we should embrace that. And we have over the years, especially with the recent Legacy Committee. We have citizens committees citizen folks on there, and not just legislators. And after all, it's their dollars. They should have some say as to where it goes. They are strictly for suggestions to the legislature, and that's good. But these people that are on these citizen boards really know what they're doing. This particular member has been a member of the Red River Basin for many years, so she knows a lot about environmental quality when it comes to water. But only one rural member on that board, and I think that's why you see this language here, and I think it's good.
Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. And will Senator Ingebrigtsen yield for just one more question?
He will yield. Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Ingebrigtsen, the last question I have deals with essentially deals with the qualifications of the members that are going to be selected, the citizen members of and I noticed that the language that you chose, and I appreciate your explanation about where it came from, but I noticed that the language that you chose is a little bit different than what's in current law in terms of what their qualifications are. And I just wondered if you could speak to, you're essentially striking the qualification that the members have to have knowledge of water management issues in the state, and now with the proposal that they would have to have knowledge of environmental review or permitting. I just wondering if you could just speak to that real briefly, and I appreciate it.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, we confirm all these, as you know, you may not know, but there is quite a process actually that goes on in the administration's office when it comes to all these citizen committees. That's a fairly extensive background and information and experience in the area that they want to, whatever committee that they want to be on. If it's a citizens committee for transportation, certainly they want somebody that's got a lot of experience, maybe engineer experience. When it comes to water quality and it comes to environment, obviously you have to have somebody on there that's knowledgeable there. I mean, that only just makes good sense. And these people come by and generally do this for nothing. They may get a per diem and mileage going to these meetings, as you well know. And I happen to serve on the LaSarde since day one, and there's some tremendous people on that committee, and they really know their stuff. But they go through an awful lot of scrutiny to get there, and they're approved by our body. So,
Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Ingebrigtsen. You know, we have had a lot of discussion about the EQB in committee, and I think it's pretty clear to a lot of people now that the EQB serves a pretty important role in the state of Minnesota when it comes to interacting between citizens, business, local units of government, and state agencies. It's not often where you find a board like this that consists of so many commissioners all in one place, all at one time, where I think it really speeds up a lot of the permitting process and a lot of the environmental EIS studies, et cetera, that go on. I think that they play a key role in doing that, so I much appreciate the fact that you were able to find the money to fund that. And I'm not, you know, based on what you tell me here tonight, I'm not opposed to your changes of the board. I think we're all, many of us at least, are supportive of additional citizen members of a lot of these boards, and I think in this case that, you know, perhaps this will be a good change, and I'm curious to see how it would work out. But I think, you know, based on, you know, Senator Ingebrigtsen and I don't agree on everything, certainly, but we do agree on many things, and I'm going to take you at your word here and support what you're trying to do. And with that, Madam President, I'm going to withdraw the amendment.
Senator Simonson has withdrawn the 825 amendment. Further discussion to Senate File 723. Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer the 826 amendment.
I'm sorry, Senator Isaacson, the 826 you said?
826, yes, please.
Senator Isaacson has offered the 826 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Isaacson moves to amend Senate File number 723 as follows, page 119, delete. This is the 826 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Isaacson.
Thank you. Well, the 826 amendment is pretty clear. If you go to page 119, I'm just deleting what looks to be 5 lines. And I'm just going to get that up here real quick so I can speak. I apologize. I should have that up before I spoke. My bad. So basically what's happening is in agriculture, we are expanding feedlot size and for farms. And I'm not sure that this is a really good idea considering the impact it has and how small of an impact, the impact each of these feedlots have, or these big farms have, and how small of a group of farmers we're actually affecting. And so I would like to call into question whether this is a good idea to double the capacity to 2,000 animal units, which is far greater than actual number of animals. It's 2,000 animal units to go from 1,000, 2,000 cows, but we're talking several thousand pigs and other animals, and the impact environmentally is pretty tough. And so, and the amount, I think it's something around 9% of the total amount of farms are actually affected by this, and it doesn't put us in a very good position to be successful. And so I would really think that this is a bill, or this is language that will encourage a lot of problems down the road, and would love to have your support. Thank you.
Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam President. I speak against this amendment. I carried this legislation, and quite frankly, Madam President, I didn't carry it because this requirement was standing in the way of hog barns being built. I carried this language because, quite frankly, it really wasn't stopping anything from being built. Actually, prior to the redoing of the feedlot laws, Madam President, in the 1990s, the requirement for an EAW was 2,000 animal units. And at that time was the decision of the MPCA that they needed information concerning confinement barns, and so it was reduced to 1,000 so that they might be able to accumulate that. Since that time, they have done their EAWs at a cost to the developer of about $25,000 to $30,000 in order for that to happen. And before I go on further, I want to mention that a couple of the things that the legislation that's proposed does not do. Number one, currently, in case of environmentally sensitive areas, the law requires that an EAW be performed if there are 500 animal units. These type of areas would be the karst areas that we talk about in southeast Minnesota. It would be wellhead protection areas, scenic river districts, and a number of areas along the Minnesota-Mississippi River. This law does not change that whatsoever. Those requirements are still in place. Another thing that this does not change is are the siting requirements. Siting is essentially handled by county zoning. Whether we want to talk about the setbacks, whether we want to talk about density, all those type of things, they're handled by county zoning. This does not change that, and actually most of the complaints that were testified in committee really revolved around the siting issues, not anything that was dealt with in an EAW. And so, quite frankly, we can continue doing these, and yet why are we requiring people to spend $25,000 to $30,000 when at the end of the day everybody knows what the end result is from the EAW? I think there's a definition for something that we keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. And I think we're at that point in time, and therefore that's why I carried the legislation to begin with, and that's why I speak against the amendment and encourage a red vote.
Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to speak briefly on this, that a little bit of a disagreement with Senator Weber. The number was 2,000 animal units before the year 2000, but we had what is called the Connected Action Rule with the larger number. The Connected Action Rule meant that the entire operation, which might be 3 large hog barns on 3 separate sites, would be considered as one connected action in terms of figuring out the trigger for environmental review. This made sense if one entity, Holden Farms for example, was going to put up 5 barns in a township. We would look at this entire connected action in terms of determining the 2,000 animal unit threshold for an EAW. Big Ag wanted the Connected Action Rule gone, and to get that, they agreed to the lower EAW threshold to 1,000 animal units from 2,000. So Holden's 5 barns are now considered independently in terms of triggering environmental review as long as they are on separate sites and need separate permits. The change was about this issue, not the MPCA needing to gather information.
Senator Isaacson.
Well, Madam President, a couple of things. First of all, I think I said 9% of farms, and it's actually 9 farms. Just 9. And the reality is that the overwhelming majority, over 90% of all livestock operations are well below the 1,000 animal limit or threshold. And what I'm most concerned about, I'm concerned about these larger places, being built, and we're expanding that. But even more, and perhaps more poignantly, is that it doesn't trigger the review process. And so we had folks come in and testify in Senator Weber's committee that talked about the concerns they had with something this large coming in next to other people's property, and there wasn't going to be a review or near it. And I think that that creates some real questions for me on why that is necessary when we're talking about such a large impact of the local community or the local neighbors that they have there. And so I'm just not comfortable going forward with a proposal that seems to be really focused on helping a very small portion of people at the expense of anybody who lives anywhere near them. And I don't think that's a good idea. And I hope that you'll join with me and say they have to have the review if they're going to go over 1,000 instead of 2,000. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just comment that I think what has happened over the years is, as a result of the 1,000-head requirement, is that we have seen a proliferation of more smaller units that have been spread over a larger area and have actually impacted more people than we would have had we had the 2,000 requirement. Another thing that I failed to mention earlier, and I will say now, is that if indeed there is an individual who does not have a good reputation in how they run their barns and their operation, that the law still provides that with 100 signatures from people that live in Minnesota, the local authorities can impose the old requirement of 1,000 animal units on them. In order for that to happen, and through the local zoning process, there will be adequate notification to the neighbors in the area of what is going on.
Further discussion on the 826. Senator Isaacson. Roll call, please. Roll call requested, roll call granted. The Secretary will take the roll on the 826 amendment.
You can't vote in that seat. Just check it. How many more to go? I think Tom's got one. I think he muzzle loaders for sure. California? I don't think so. Did you say Tom's? Tom Barnes. Muzzle loaders.
All those senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 31 ayes and 34 nays, the amendment is not adopted. Further discussion on 723. Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam President. I have the A51 amendment.
Senator Eaton offers the A51 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Eaton moves to amend Senate file number 723 as follows, page 101, after line 22 insert. This is the A51 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Eaton.
Thank you. In the 2016 supplemental budget, the legislature approved $4.4 million for the DNR and other state agencies to hire outside legal expertise to address possible legal challenges to the PolyMet permit to mine decision. At the time, the agency stressed that these expenditures were needed because the Attorney General's office did not have the expertise needed to represent the state. Therefore, the DNR hired Crowell and Mooring, a Washington, D.C. based law firm. Over 4 years, the DNR estimated these outside legal expenses would exceed $7 million. That's why I rise to offer this amendment requesting that the legislative auditor conduct a special review of the expenditure of money by state agencies on legal services related to potential litigation. While it isn't remarkable that a state agency would seek outside legal help on a specific issue, the amount of money that has already been appropriated for this specific purpose is unusually large. The people of Minnesota deserve to know that their tax dollars are being spent wisely. They also have a right to know what they are receiving in exchange for their tax dollars. This amendment requests a review of the amount spent, who was hired with that money, and what work products were created. The amendment offers oversight and transparency for this significant expenditure. Frequently, we speak of the need for accountability and transparency on the floor of this body. Voting green on this amendment is an opportunity to put that talk into action. Thank you, and please vote green on this amendment.
Further discussion on the A51 amendment, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President, and I would say that I would say no to this amendment. Members, the auditor can already do this if requested, or if they see, and that's part of the job. That's part of the function of the auditor. So, members, I would vote no on this, or ask you to vote no on this amendment.
Further discussion on the A51 amendment. Seeing none, all in favor of the A51 amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment is not adopted. Further discussion, Senator Bach.
Third reading. Can you do that?
Madam President, I have the A30 amendment.
Senator Bach offers the A30 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Bach moves to amend Senate File 723 as follows. Page 60, delete Section 58. This is the A30 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Bach.
Madam President, Senator Ingebrigtsen's got one real clinker in his bill here, and if I can't get this out of his bill, I just don't see any way I could possibly support his bill. You know, members, Senator Bob Lessard was a long-time serving member of this body, and he was, those of you that knew have heard about the Lessard-Sams constitutional amendment that was passed in 2008. He actually brought that idea to the legislature back in the 90s, and it had been done in Missouri, where they passed a sales tax like that for the outdoors. And he left quite a legacy of things that he did for the outdoors in the decades that he chaired Senator Ingebrigtsen's committee. And one of the things that he did was he created a special deer season for a primitive firearm and called a muzzleloader. And you all remember seeing muzzleloaders. Daniel Boone's probably the best example in his coonskin cap and his flintlock muzzleloader in the minds of people. And it was always intended to be a very primitive hunting season. It came after the regular firearms season. And for a long, long time, you couldn't, if you were a rifle hunter that hunted the regular firearms season, you couldn't even buy a muzzleloader license. That they tried to keep it that exclusive for people that only wanted to use a very primitive firearm. And so then I worked with Senator Lessard on a number of things when I was a member of the House and he was a member of the Senate. And so in 2002, when he made a decision to retire, I came over to see him to congratulate him for all of his work that he had done for the people of northern Minnesota, much of the area that I actually represent today. And he said, Tom, he says, you're coming over to the Senate. He said, I only want you to promise me one thing. He said, you promise me that you are never going to let them put scopes on muzzle loaders. And so I promised Senator Lessard I would do that, and last year Senator Ingebrigtsen cracked the armor, and we made an exception that if you were 60 years old, you could have a scope on a muzzleloader. And Senator Ingebrigtsen convinced me that, when a person gets to be 60, your eyesight's not as good, and maybe a set of iron sights is a little bit hard, so maybe we should allow people that are 60 a chance to have a scope on their muzzleloader. And I actually authored that with him. We passed that into law. But now he's taken it to the next level, and in his bill, he's proposing that anybody can put a scope on a muzzleloader, and it really will, members, destroy the Senator Lessard's vision and my feeling about it being a very primitive type of hunting season. So what the amendment does, members, is it takes the provision out of the bill that allows people to have scopes on muzzleloaders during the muzzleloader season. Now, if you want to hunt with your muzzleloader during the regular firearms season, that's perfectly permissible, and you'd be able to use a scope on it. So for people that want to be able to use a scope on their muzzleloader, that's available to them now during the regular firearms season, but during the primitive hunting season, I think we should leave it just that, and it should only be iron sights and not aided by optics. So, and Senator Fischbach, this is a really important amendment to Senator Lessard. And I know that when the Ranger Party comes in the end of April, and those of you that haven't had the opportunity to experience that yet, the range legislators for decades have been holding a little party for the legislature and everybody that works around here. It's going to happen in late April. I noticed the flyers started to go up today with the 8 members of the range legislative delegation announcing the Ranger Party, and I know Senator Lessard's going to be coming to that. And I know he's going to want to know how people voted on his primitive firearms season. So, Madam President, knowing that, I'm just going to have to, I don't want to, Senator Ingebrigtsen, but I have to ask for a roll call vote on the Lessard amendment to take the scopes off of muzzleloaders.
Roll call's been requested. Roll call granted. Further discussion, Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Madam President, members, I don't want to bore you too long here, and I know this is probably not real high on everybody's list, but I did set out a picture here, and I think there's another one coming around. I'm not sure if there is or not, but just to give you a little idea of the primitive hunting in Minnesota and our history. And if you'll see the bow and arrow display that I have here with my name on it, you'll see that they started out with basically a stick and a string with an arrow, and then they went to compound bows, and now they have what's called crossbows. We've moved into crossbows, similar to fishing. And Senator Bach and I are relatively the same age. I'm a little bit older than him. Remember the days when we went out in our boats and we actually went out and found the fish the hard way. We'd troll around until we found them, and we'd troll back and forth over that area. But now, folks, you don't have to do that. You can buy yourself thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and you can stack yourself right on top of those walleyes, and you can catch those walleyes like nothing. So the fair trade, well, some of us can, Senator Westrom. So things have changed and evolved over the years, and I certainly appreciate the primitive lifestyle of hunters that want to go out and do this in Minnesota or wherever they are. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, you can go right out and do that. If you want to put your moccasins on and wear your leather and you have a musket ball, that's a round ball that actually from a flintlock, and you've probably seen them. I've got actually a smaller one in my office. It's a replica. You can actually go out and do that if you want to during the muzzleloader season. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. Nobody's stopping you from using primitive style bow and arrow. But we have muzzleloaders now, and they're being passed around. You'll see that where we started out with those flintlocks, and then they went to muzzleloaders with plain sights, and now they have muzzleloaders that actually shoot out a long range. They go out to, it depends upon who you're talking to. When you're talking to hunters, you got to be careful about the distance. They say they'll shoot. But there's hunters now that are taking shots out there 150 to 200 yards with what's called these muzzle loaders. You could never do that with a primitive gun. You could never do that, ever. You'd be foolish to do that. And you'd be actually you'd be foolish to do that with open sights. And here's why. The chances of wounding a deer are much more. I think you're more apt to wounding a deer and that deer running away and dying later on and allowing that hunter to actually go out and shoot another deer that might be closer. So what you've got is you've got 2 dead deer, only 1 recovered, when you should have only had 1. With a scope, with the aid of a scope, obviously the gun becomes more accurate. And all the states around us, and I believe up in Canada you can do it, and I might be wrong with that, about that, but all the states around allow this all season long. Members, it's time to move into that. And when we talk about Bob Lassard, I've gotten to know him quite well, actually. I've been around since Senator Cohen and those members actually did the legacy back in 2008, and I worked with Bob Lassard on naming it after himself, as well as Senator Dallas Sams, who I actually replaced. And I did that, and I think that was my amendment that did that, because he actually worked on that and did a lot of work on that, and I didn't have a problem with that at all, even though he was my adversary at election time. He actually deserved that. But Bob Lassard still lives and still is with us, and informed me the other day that, guess what, he bought a scope for his muzzle loader. And I think, Senator Bach, you've seen that email, actually. I wasn't going to bring that out today, but nevertheless, he's moved into that new era. And members, seriously, what it's all about is you got a license in your pocket to take a deer, no matter how you do it. The bottom line is, if you're going to shoot at it, we want a fatal shot. We want to be able to recover the animal immediately. We don't want them running around wounded. The chances of doing that without a scope are greater. So please vote against Senator Bach's amendment.
Senator Bach.
I have to take the bait, Madam Chair. Members, muzzleloaders are a big piece of lead, 250 grains or more, and the further that travels out, the slower it goes. And that's part of the reason of not taking long shots with muzzleloaders, is they don't have the foot-pounds of energy when they start getting out 100 yards or more. So that deer that Senator Ingebrigtsen is going to hit is not going to die, because the muzzle loader, the sabot's not going to go through it because it doesn't have the killing power. Now, that's a dirty trick that Senator Lassard went and bought a scope, because what I know about Senator Lassard is he is over 60, and in current law we allow people over 60 to have a scope. So Senator Lassard took advantage of Senator Ingebrigtsen's provision from last year because he was over 60 and he qualified. But this is a primitive season, members. We should leave it a primitive season and just not turn it into another firearms season.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Real quickly, I'm Senator Bach. Thank you, Madam President. Senator Bach, I'm getting the sign to sit down here, but I can't. You also see a letter from a youngster that just sent this to me the other day. I took his name off. Please look at that. He makes a really good point, and that's coming from a kid, a young kid. You know, get the scopes on the muzzle loaders. You should also know the DNR is neutral on this. They don't take a stand one way or the other. They're neutral on this. And the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, who represents an awful lot of Minnesotans, are in favor of this. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Secretary will take the roll on the A30 amendment.
Really? I am. I'm hanging with Bob. Aren't you? Uh-oh.
Western likes it.
Tory.
Do you like those brats or don't you?
No, that depends. Oh, that is true. 30 at 6. Actually, doesn't it project a little faster after 100 feet? Doesn't it speed up? You know, and I'm going to call you
35 bucks.
29's
They're playing.
playing. I see.
It's 3 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
And you know what?
Whose song was that?
Yeah.
All those senators having voted who desire to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 34 ayes and 31 nays, the amendment is adopted.
You working good. You shot the sheriff.
Further discussion.
Stuck with you, Tory.
Secretary will give
332.
Senate File 723 its third reading.
Senate File Number 723, a bill for an act excuse me, relating to state government appropriating money for environment and natural resources.
Does anyone have the guts to make final comments? Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't offer any amendments. Madam President, I just wanted to touch a few points quickly just to make sure that they are articulated for the record. Madam President, I will be voting against this bill. And yeah, I know you're shocked. Senator Osmick is shocked. Madam President, just very, very quickly, we already mentioned the fact that this bill really does unwind and unravel the buffer protections for habitat and water quality, despite the fact that we know that most areas of the state are making extremely good progress on moving forward on that initiative, and it's having very, very positive effects for water quality. Likewise, Madam President, it institutes a requirement in which those who are responsible for pollution that results from their operations are entitled to not pay. In other words, they're forcing others to pay. Nevertheless, small businesses like mine who do have impact on water quality are paying quite a bit. We read a lot about that in the paper. It really does hobble the MPCA and the DNR from carrying out a lot of their permitting duties. And it really creates a lot more regulatory burden on them, slowing down what I think is an intent to actually speed up some regulatory processes. It really violates the science that agencies use to arrive at the decisions, questions fundamentally, and allows anyone the ability to challenge, for any reason they see fit, some of the very sound decisions that our agencies do make with a lot of effort and a lot of public expenditure that goes into making those decisions. We already had the amendment on delaying action to clean up polluted water. Unfortunately, our efforts to get that out of the bill failed. Likewise, the suspension of the water quality standards and rules. The feedlots being doubled without any environmental assessment at all is going to have a very negative consequence on our environment. It completely takes the public out of the process of participating in the analysis and examination and questioning of permits for mining. It allows corporations to write their own environmental impact statements, although I was appreciative of the amendment that went in that allow that data to be more public. Some of the restrictions on the DNR to issue draft permits within 150 days. They're already submitting permits on a 90% basis in line with the statutory requirements for their deadlines, and occasionally, because of the problems of the permit applicants, those processes need to be slowed down. The effort to remove the rules for silica sand mining, when we know that local units of government and neighbors and public health officials believe that some of the dust that blows off those mines actually might be harmful for public health. We talked a little bit about the prohibition of the use of lead shot, extremely harmful to wildlife, particularly birds. I'm particularly distressed at the effort to allow for the draining of groundwater in the vicinity of sensitive fens in our state. There's interference with science-based forest planning at the Sand Dunes State Forest, and we talked about the plastic bags and the violation of local authority, as well as the harmful effect on the environment. So, Madam President, this is an awful lot of initiatives that are actually going to move our environment backwards and be harmful to our environment. It's kind of funny to call it the Environment Bill when it actually has a negative consequence and it violates a lot of the progress that we've made over the course of many, many, many years. Plus, all these policy items are in a funding bill, which the governor's already said he doesn't want to be leveraged on financing discussions with extremist policies that he won't support in the first place. So, Madam President, I think this is just simply a bill that's destined for the disfavor of the governor, and don't think it's prudent for us to pass it.
Final. Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President, and members for the wonderful discussion tonight, and I appreciate the patience, and I would ask for your support of the bill. I think it's a good bill moving forward.
Secretary will take the roll on Senate File 723. All those senators having voted who desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 36 ayes and 30 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.